And now I'd like to introduce today's special guest. Over the years, we've welcomed many speakers to this podium who have stressed the importance of education to Canada's future and to its economic well-being. In a speech here a couple of years ago, University of Toronto President David Naylor said that to assert that new knowledge economy is sweeping the world is a platitude. Certainly it's become a common theme that in a flat world, global marketplace, the advantage goes to those who are skilled, and especially to those who are skilled in dealing with change. For Ontario, a high loonie and a slumping U.S. market have put pressure on the province's manufacturing core, something we're reminded of with every auto plant closure from Windsor through to Oshawa. As Premier McGuinty said, for now these are anxious times. His government recognizes the reality of a changing labour market, and their most recent budget highlighted the need to help equip Ontario workers to face the challenges that now exist, as well as those that most certainly lie ahead. $2 billion were earmarked to support new skills for new careers, to expand post-secondary student aid and programs, and to build places to learn. The Skills to Jobs Action Plan goal is to have the greatest number of people possible working in jobs that will strengthen Ontario's competitive advantage. In a recent speech on the occasion of the opening of the new Algoma University College in Sault Ste. Marie, our honoured guest underlined his government's commitment to the students of this province, making sure, as he said, that every young person in our province is able to reach his or her full potential. Ontario, as Minister Milloy said, has a reputation to uphold as a great place to learn and a smart place to invest. An investment in education and prosperity are truly linked, something that the McGuinty government has publicly and repeatedly made. They've emphasized the need to weather the economic storm by moving quickly to release infrastructure funding for the province so that, among other initiatives, Ontario can increase funding to create more jobs in cutting-edge industries. Ontario seems ready to move forward. Our guest today will speak on the efforts being made by his government to help Ontarians adjust to our changing labour market and to make sure that Ontario continues to compete in a global market. Please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, the Honourable John Milloy, Minister of Training, Colleges, Universities, Ontario.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that very kind introduction, and I want to thank the Canadian Club for hosting me here today, as well as our two sponsors, the Council of Ontario Universities and TD Bank. I also want to thank all of you for coming out to listen to my words of wisdom this afternoon, but I also want to thank you for something more. I know we have a wonderful cross-section of Ontario here. We have educators and business leaders and tradespeople and union representatives and students and administrators, and I want to thank you for your contribution that you make to Ontario's progress and moving forward. And thank you for taking some time to be here with me today. There's many special people here in the audience today that I recognize. My family was good enough to buy a lot of tickets, but I do want to single out two, and I apologize to the rest because, as I say, there's many and we could spend a lot of time, and that's two of my predecessors. And the first is Sean Conway, who of course held the position as Minister of Education, where he was responsible both for elementary, secondary, and post-secondary, and Sean's with us here today, so I think we should acknowledge. Those of you who, I believe my biography is in the little leaflet there on your table, will know that I was a page in the Ontario Legislature, and Sean was one of my heroes. And later on, I went to work at the Ontario Legislature at the ripe age of 22 as an assistant to a backbencher. And just towards the end of 1989, really just several months away from the 1990 election, I had the difficult decision of whether to go work for Minister Conway, as I called him then, in his office answering phones, or go to graduate school. And I chose to go to graduate school, and have often wondered what would have happened to me if I had gone with you, Sean. But the other minister, former minister, I want to acknowledge today is Marianne Chambers, and it's wonderful to see Marianne here today. I owe a special debt. I think many of us in the room owe a special debt of gratitude to Marianne. She was, of course, the Minister of Training Colleges and Universities who instituted the Bob Rae Review, which in turn led to the wonderful 2005 budget and the announcement of Reaching Higher. So, Marianne, we're all standing on your shoulders in this sector with the wonderful work that you did here, and it's wonderful to see an old colleague. Now, I'm now have this mantle and this job, and for many people in this room, this may be one of the first opportunities you've had to see me speak. I'm relatively new to the portfolio. In fact, as we head towards the end of June, it's just been 8 months, and although it's been a busy 8 months, it just seems like yesterday that I actually received the call from the Premier asking me if I would do it. I remember the occasion well. I was actually in my garage emptying my car, and my cell phone rang. And there, sitting on an overturned blue box between my lawnmower and my weed whacker, he asked me if I joined the cabinet. So I must say, there was a little bit of a down note. I came in and told my wife, and as we were celebrating the wonderful news, I turned to her and said, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that I would be a cabinet minister? She looked at me and said, well, actually, John, you've never been in any of my wildest dreams. But anyway. Now, I persevered, but that being said, I'm probably not in the wildest dreams of many Ontarians, but I know that we all share the same objectives. We want a safe, strong, and healthy community, healthy province for our families and for the future. And I think we all understand how fortunate we are to live in a wealthy, prosperous province where we can enjoy a wonderful quality of life. Few other countries can compete with us on that score. Yes, today Ontario is facing some economic challenges. That's not news to anyone in the room. But let's remember that it wasn't dreams alone that made Ontario what it is today. Hard work by generations of Ontarians did. Ontarians will work together, as we've been doing for more than a century. We'll tackle the economic issues, and we will build a stronger province. But I'll tell you one thing, government alone is not going to overcome these economic challenges. Each and every one of us in this room today bears a share of responsibility for helping to move Ontario's economy forward, for helping to maintain Ontario's quality of life. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. What my role is, yes, but also what your role is. The Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, while certainly an education ministry and a social development ministry, is also very much an economic ministry. And as such, we play a vital role in delivering on the Premier's 5-point economic plan. That plan, designed to maintain Ontario's status as a world economic leader, is quite straightforward, yet very strategic. We're lowering business costs. We're investing in infrastructure for long-term benefit and short-term jobs. We're fostering a climate of innovation. We're forming new partnerships with business. And of importance to today's discussion, we're investing in the skills and knowledge of Ontario's people so we can generate the high-value employees our companies need. That, in a nutshell, is the role of the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities. Now, Premier McGuinty often quotes Lester Thoreau on this subject. In a world where capital is borrowable, raw materials are buyable, and technology is copyable, what are you left with if you want to run a high-wage economy? Only skills. There isn't anything else. My mandate, simply put, is to make sure Ontarians have the education, skills, and training they need to help our province compete in a global marketplace. And this is not only one of our government's priorities, it's also one of yours. According to a survey of CEOs, the availability of key skills is one of the leading areas of concern to business today throughout the world. You know that Ontario's competitive edge, the way this province will continue to produce high-wage, high-value jobs in the future, is by being innovative and by building the most highly skilled, highly educated workforce possible. But what does building our workforce really mean, and how do we accomplish it? The challenges associated with building this workforce struck me last Wednesday to be exact, when I picked up the paper and picked up any paper in the province of Ontario and read the headlines. The lead story in every newspaper was the layoff of 1,000 workers at the General Motors plant in Oshawa. Obviously, a very troubling story. These are real people, and the news affects not only them but their families and the community, and they're going to be facing a very difficult transition period. But another news story that wasn't as prominent on the same day also caught my attention. The Construction Sector Council had issued a report warning that 250,000 workers are going to be needed in Canada's construction sector over the next 8 years. Now, it's not difficult to draw a connection in your mind between these two stories and ask yourself if it's possible to make the link between one sector of the economy that is undergoing a restructuring and other sectors that might be begging for workers. The answer is yes, it can be done, but let me tell you, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds. Changing the nature and skills of our workforce is going to require creativity, some innovation, and a lot of great partnerships. There are no easy answers. Retraining a workforce isn't anything like the movies. I often wonder what people who fly planes or defuse bombs think of the movies where in 5 minutes a passerby can land a plane when the pilot dies or defuse a bomb. Real life isn't like that, but that doesn't mean there are not solutions. So this afternoon, let me share with you some of the challenges involved in retraining a workforce and some of the successes we've had. To begin with, we're not dealing with statistics. We're dealing with real people. A workforce is comprised of individuals, each with their own strengths. Not everyone can be trained to be a builder or a pilot or a bomb diffuser. So we have to reach out to people virtually one at a time, get a sense of what their needs are, and custom make a personal training program for them that makes sense. Second, we've got some 2.3 million Ontario workers who don't read and write well enough to fully participate in today's economy. Before they can be trained to take on a high-value job, they are going to need to upgrade their basic literacy skills. And we're still seeing Aboriginal people, persons with disabilities, older workers, new Canadians, marginalized in the workforce and unable to contribute to their full potential. And when it comes to our youth, although more are going on to post-secondary education than ever before, we need more young people pursuing science and technology degrees and going into the skilled trades. The government has set out to tackle these challenges in a very strategic manner. We started by making significant investments in education at the elementary, secondary, and post-secondary levels. The goal of our Reaching Higher plan that I mentioned when introducing Marianne Chambers represented the biggest investment in post-secondary education in 4 decades. Its goal was to make sure that every person with the ability to succeed in college or university was able to do so. Part of this plan has been to provide substantial increases in financial support for students to give them better access to higher education. We've also provided funding for our colleges and universities to improve the quality of their learning environments and to encourage collaboration and the development of better pathways between our institutions so students have more available options to pursue their goals. I'm proud to say that as a result of our government's investment in training and education. 10,000 more students are graduating every year from high school. That's in the face of declining enrollment instead of dropping out. We have 100,000 more young people attending our province's colleges and universities than 5 years ago. And we're on track to expand by 14,000 the number of graduate spaces at our universities by 2010. We're taking steps to attract more skilled immigrants and to open up employment options for new Canadians with new bridge training programs that help them get back into the labor force faster. And we're diversifying our education system, forming new partnerships and forming new structures like the recently announced Centre of Excellence for Education and Financial Services to help us attract and retain jobs in key growth sectors. We recognize skilled trades are an equally important piece of Ontario's future, and so we are concentrating efforts on building up our apprenticeship sector. There are now 50,000 more apprentices in our province when the government took office. That represents a 25% increase in registrants in our first term, and we're on track to increase it by a further 25% over the next 4 years. We understand that there's no point in training people on yesterday's equipment for tomorrow's jobs. So we've also invested in equipment and facilities at our community colleges, as well as our union employer and employer training centers. And we have a number of unions that are represented on the head table today. I don't know if people realize that unions are responsible for about 14% of the training that goes on in the province. They punch far beyond their weight in preparing apprentices for the future. Some of our greatest successes in building a competitive new workforce don't come through the long list of programs. They in fact come through partnerships that we've entered into with community groups and not-for-profit agencies. Let's talk science, for example. That's the name of the group. We don't want to talk about science. Well, we do, and it's an organization that we're really proud of. This award-winning group was started a few years ago by a group of Ontario teachers who realized the need to attract more young people to the maths and science sector. Today, Let's Talk Science is an amazing network of scientists, early childhood educators, and teachers who make science fun, interactive, engaging, and of course, help steer kids to careers in biology, the environment, health sciences, and physics. George Brown College is another great example of an innovative partnership dedicated to helping marginalized youth get the skills they need to contribute to the economy. The college and its partner, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, are using skills training as a way to help young people recover from mental illness or addiction. The program gives at-risk youth access to on-the-job training in restaurants. At the end of the program, the students are able to choose from a wide range of jobs in the food industry. George Brown runs a similar program that teaches the basics of the construction trade. Over 80 people have graduated from these two programs over the past 5 years, and to date, the employment rate has been phenomenal. And I want to make a brief mention of Skills Canada. Skills Canada is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to promoting skilled trades and technologies. It partners with colleges, with school boards, and with my ministry. A few weeks ago, I dropped by the 19th Ontario Technological Skills Competition, which they hosted. This annual competition is like the Olympics for skilled trades. It had some 1,500 students from grade 4 to the post-secondary level, as well as apprentices, competing in everything from horticulture and character animation to auto repair and cabinet making. And the winners go on to compete at the national and even the international level. And I got to tell you, it was the best swag that I've ever got. I got a cake from the bakery competition. I got T-shirts from every community college. I got wine from the Niagara College. I got flowers just before Mother's Day from the horticulture or the flower exhibit. I was doing well. But these are the types of amazing programs that don't get the type of publicity that they should have. These are ones that are getting people when they're young and telling them how important skills trades are, what an honorable profession it is, how many pathways there are. They're creating enthusiasm amongst young people. And it's not simply the competition that Skills Canada does. Last year alone, they sponsored speaking events, speaking to over 150,000 students, and they ran summer camps in 22 communities. Now, these 3 programs are just the tip of the iceberg. And in fact, if you want to invite me back, I could go on all day. I understand we have the Pathways program, which is represented here today. Another amazing program that is a partnership between my ministry and the Ministry of Education in terms of the government side of it, but that's one where the community came together and said, how can we help young people, prepare young people at an early age to make it through high school and go on to post-secondary education and training? How can we help them overcome some of the obstacles? And I'm proud to say the government came to the table in partnership, and I'm proud to say that it is an outstanding success, and we look forward to seeing more and more graduates, and we welcome you here today. Where are you? There you are. You're over at table 26, so it's great to have you here. Now, I've talked about education, I've talked about training. I want to talk about the third piece of the puzzle. What are we doing to help those people who find themselves on the sidelines without a job because of transitions in the economy? Just over a year ago, Ontario inherited the federal suite of employment services and combined them with the provincial ones to form a network called Employment Ontario. Now, we're still in the early stages of building this structure, but it's a one-stop shop supported by about 1,200 community-based agencies throughout the province, where we can help individuals with everything from interview skills to literacy upgrading to getting into an apprenticeship. Last week, as was mentioned, the Premier launched the newest Employment Ontario program, our second career strategy. This one program is going to help some 20,000 people who have been recently laid off to get long-term training so that they can have access to high-paying, high-value jobs. So our government is stepping up. We're doing our part, and of course we recognize there's more to do, and we're willing to do more. But the task of building tomorrow's workforce is simply too complex for us to manage alone. Government can form partnerships, we can fund programs, we can bring people together. But you know what? We don't directly educate anyone. We don't directly train anyone. That's why we need you, all of you, educators, unions, community partners at the table, ready and willing to do your part. And I want to give a special heads up to the employers that are out there today. I'm going to be knocking on your doors in the near future, looking for you to do your part too. Ontario lags far behind its competitors when it comes to workplace training, despite the fact that any investment you can make will come back to you many times over. In fact, the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum tells us that on average, a $1 investment in training returns a benefit to the employer of $1.38. That's probably much better than you can do on Bay Street. Whether it's running workplace literacy initiatives, a training program, hiring apprentices, reaching out to hire marginalized workers, I ask the employers among you to step up as partners and help us move Ontario forward. In closing, I want to leave you with a short story of success and inspiration. About a year ago, auto supplier Collins and Aikman laid off hundreds of Ontario employees, many of them here in Scarborough, as part of a North American restructuring. The Toronto area people who lost their jobs are members of the Canadian Auto Workers, Local 303. Now, this was not the first or the last uncertainty that Buzz Hargrove and his workers have faced recently, and I'm sure I'm not alone when I say our heart goes out to these workers and their families. 14 of those employees didn't have the literacy skills they needed to find a job. Now, they didn't despair or give up. They decided to go back to school. My ministry partnered with the CAW and the Toronto District School Board to help these people get the reading and writing skills they need in order to contribute in a knowledge economy. And today, in a few minutes, in this very hotel, I'm going to be joining Buzz Hargrove to present these 14 students with a certificate to recognize their accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting there, one person at a time, and with wonderful partnerships like this, I know we can succeed. Thank you very much.
I'd like to call on Nick Chambers to come and provide some kind regards.
Thank you, Alan. Minister Milloy, when one of my daughters was 5 or 6, she declared that when she grew up, she was going to become an obstetrician and a firefighter. Wow, tell me more, was my reply. Well, she replied, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll deliver babies, and on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I'll put out fires. So, Minister, you are not alone in recognizing the rules of work have changed. On a related note, in high school, we were told that in the near future, most adults would change careers 3 to 5 times before reaching retirement. Cool, I thought, because who wants to do the same thing forever? In reality, many adults change careers not because they want to, but because they have to. We don't have to look far to see evidence of widespread examples of that reality. And in reality, workers and employers cannot be left to navigate this new labor market alone. So on behalf of the Canadian Club of Toronto, I would like to thank you, Minister Milloy, for demonstrating to us that as the rules change, the playbook must also change. Clearly, changing the nature and skills of our workforce, to use your words, is no small feat. We look forward to hearing more from you regarding your plans, your progress, and the ways that all of us can remain involved. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in applauding the leadership of our Minister of Training Colleges and Universities, Minister John Milloy.
Well, thank you all. That concludes our lunch. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.